guys? Thomas Cicillo Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, and I'm here to review the movie Tom and Jerry. If you end up enjoying this review, then please consider joining my Patreon page. There'll be the second link in the description below. I'll remind you at the end of the movie review. So enough shilling aside, and before I begin my review, just to talk about Tom and Jerry in a more outside of the movie terms. So Tom and Jerry have been around the block for a long time, and I would say I watch them every now and again. I wouldn't say I'm a die-hard fan by any degree, but they were enjoyable to watch growing up. There have definitely been plenty of movies of them. Uh, there was the movie where Tom and Jerry both talked. Yes, that's a thing that happened. It was pretty creepy, by the way. And then there were movies where they enter in someone else's movies, like, for an example, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which probably introduced some nightmare fuel into the world. So, they've had their journey, so it was interesting to see how they would turn up in their own feature-length film. And I would say for the most part, it's fine. It's fine. If, you enjoyed Tom and Jerry growing up, seeing them chase each other around, beat each other up, there's enough of that in the movie, I think, for that part to make, to fit in. And then there's the live action portion, which is its own little story that happens alongside Tom and Jerry's shenanigans. So let's get into it, and I will be going scene by scene, spoiling everything as I do, so that's why I waited a while to review this movie. So the movie begins with some animated birds singing along some song. So the first thing to note about the animation is that all the animals are animated and all of the living people are the living people. So that's how they distinguish things between animation and live action. I would say that's a pretty interesting compromise. They could have went for Tom and Jerry are the only things that are the CGI that are interacting, but no, they actually went ahead and did all of the animals that way. So okay, that's pretty cool. So we see Tom, the cat, on a bus, just traveling along, and then we cut to Jerry, the mouse, looking for a new home. He's talking, or this rat is talking to him about this new car that, that could be his available new home. That is what his goal is in this movie, to find a new decent home. So he's going about doing his business that way. Meanwhile, we see Tom trying to make his own money, trying to make it on his own, playing the piano, doing a little bit where he pretends to be blind to get some sympathy money. And it seems to be working, that is, until Jerry makes his way and finds Tom and decides to mess with him. So the chasing begins, and in the process the piano breaks, and Tom is revealed that he's not a blind cat, but just a normal cat that can play the piano, so people want their money back, even though a cat that can play piano would probably still get money. I don't know. Anyways, they proceed to continue to chase each other, or more so Tom chasing Jerry, I should say. And in the process, Tom bumps into our lead female character, played by Chloe Grace Moretz. She plays a character named Kayla. So, she works for some thing. I'm not sure what her job was, but she quits her first job, or the job that she has. I'm not sure which it is, but It's totally irrelevant. She quit her job. That's all you need to know. Anyways, in the process of the chase, Jerry proceeds to run inside this large hotel, which most of the movie proceeds to take place in, and rushes inside. Excuse me. So, Kayla, making her way to sort of, I guess, take some free food from the hotel, I guess that's what her goal was at the moment, ends up seeing this other woman who's getting ready for an interview. So, Kayla decides to trick this woman by saying that she is the one, uh, you know, asking about the job in terms of like, this woman's here for a job. She's waiting for an interview, so Kayla is pretending to be the interviewer. Uh, so Kayla, using her wits, steals or takes her resume and then proceeds to get her out of the scene and proceeds to use her resume, uh, which is an impressive resume apparently. And since this hotel is very desperate for hiring, we see that that comes up pretty often, at least for this bit. Meanwhile, while all that's going on outside, we still see that Tom is trying to make his way inside to the hotel, but he's held up by a few other cats for a bit. So he manages to call them off in the process. We then cut to a co-manager played by Michael Pena, sorry, uh, who's like again this like co-manager who is a little hesitant about hiring on Kayla, but they both proceed to the main office where the main manager is, and he's like, "Hey, we're desperate. We're planning this big thing for this wedding that's going to go down. That's the main that's the story with the characters in the hotel. There's a wedding, they need some employees very desperately, so they hire her on pretty quickly, seeing her impressive resume. But of course, again, as I mentioned, it's not her resume. Anyways, uh, you might be wondering, well, how did she get in if that was someone else's resume? She tore off the top part and made an excuse uh, as to why the top part was ripped off. That's exactly why. And she ends up sort of ripping apart the rest of the resume, saying, "We don't need a resume. Let me prove my worth actually doing the work." And I like the through line of this message or theme about, let people try to just get work. Let them, prove their worth by doing and not by needing all of this predetermined worked qualifications. I really, really like the theme of this movie. Surprisingly, Tom and Jerry has a pretty awesome theme to it. Who could have possibly foreseen that? Uh, as a YouTuber who's been doing YouTube for 6 years, uh, I definitely can complain about this, considering that to be hired on YouTube, you need 1,000 subscribers. In other words, it's not about the quality of your work, it's about the quantity of your subscriber count, which I will continue to complain about until the day that changes, which it probably never will. But it never hurts to try to bring that up every now and again. Anyways, enough complaining and back to the review. So anyways, Jerry's already in, uh, making his rounds in the hotel. With Kayla being hired, she's being proceeded to be shown around the hotel. And while Jerry makes his own comfortable little home there, Tom is seeing that he made his way in, so uh, Tom proceeds to try the various ways of trying to get in and continuously fails to get inside. We cut to Ken Jeong, who plays Jackie, the chef that's planning the wedding stuff in terms of what's going on in the chef realm. Anyways, so Jerry is spotted by this dog, and it's the dog from the cartoon. I don't remember his name, the dog's name, unfortunately. But it's the one that usually beats up Tom. See, like I said, I'm not a die-hard fan, so I'd apologize for not remembering his name and not even bothering to look it up. But whatever. So this dog, who I'll just call the big gray dog, is accompanied by the couple that is intending to get wed. They also have a little female cat with them. So yeah, we have all that going on. So now that some people know that Jerry is there, including some of the staff, including Kayla, who is now tasked to stop and remove Jerry. Sorry. She proceeds to place a mouse trap, and it fails. I don't remember. Just looking ahead at my notes for a second here, because I believe this is where the scene where they talk about whether, yes, this does happen in the movie, where they discuss whether or not Jerry is male or female. I'm not kidding. I believe this is where it happens, where they first discover it, and they're like, the few employees are discreetly trying to talk about getting rid of it so that they can keep up their name. This is between the main manager, Kayla, and Kim Jung's character. And they're talking about getting rid of Jerry and what to do and how to do it. And Kayla proceeds to say, "Oh, I'll get rid of him or her. I don't know." So they imply that Jerry could be female. And this little moment is a moment of stupidity, and I'll tell you why. So, we all know why this little moment exists. At least people who pay attention will know why this little scene exists. It's an attempt to be woke. You know, gender equality. Now here's the problem. There are plenty of female characters who exist for this intended purpose, okay? I've named some of them in the past that exist. So we do not need for there to be this gender equality thing in Tom and Jerry of all things. Okay? But in the nature of woke nature, there's also cancel culture. Now, in cancel culture, if Jerry was female, let's just play along with this narrative, this movie would be canceled. We all know there would be an attempt to be made to cancel this movie if there was the chance that Jerry was a female, which he is not. And that's totally fine. Jerry is a guy. It's fine that Jerry is a male. That's totally fine, movie. We do not need a scene asking if Jerry is a female or something in between. We do not need that in Tom and Jerry. Okay? There are plenty of females who kick ass. You know who you can ask about that? You can ask Chloe Grace Moretz, who played Hit Girl in the movie Kick-Ass. Okay? That's one of those females that kicks ass and fights for the equality without doing the whole gender equality thing. Problem solved. You didn't need this little moment. Anyways, little rant aside, getting back into it. So after they discuss whether Jerry is female, which, again, it's the one stupid thing in the movie. They could have completely cut it out and changed nothing in the movie. By the way, the other reason why I've been pointing out other characters' genders, sorry to get cut back into this, but Kayla managed to notice every other character's gender in terms of the animals. She knows that Tom is a male. She knows that the female cat is a female. So don't try to even pretend that she wouldn't know that Jerry is also a male, and suggest that Jerry could possibly be a female, even though that's completely stupid to even try to suggest such a thing. Anyways, now the rant's done. Sorry. Anyways, so she set up the mouse trap and fails to capture him, because of course she does. So Tom, being that he's trying to still get in, has his little devil talk to him. Now, his devil can talk, and his angel can talk. Apparently, which is fine, if they want to do it that way, that's cool. It's just when they talk all the time is when it gets a little bit weird. Anyway, so Tom uses these little beams across and still fails to get inside. Backglider, montage, all aside, failing again and again to get inside. So he does manage to eventually get inside, and they chase each other around the room. Or, again, Tom chases Jerry. And I will say, in terms of them interacting with things in the real world, I would say that this is probably the best scene to show off Tom chasing Jerry in the real world, is when they're chasing each other in this very room. The way they interact with objects, and when they do, the objects move as they tend to do. It's actually quite damn impressive. Probably, again, the most impressive scene in the movie. And I will cut to it now. There are moments, very small moments, where when humans like Kayla are interacting with Tom and Jerry, where it's a little bit off. I wouldn't say it ruins the movie in any way. It's just a little bit noticeable. Nothing too crazy, So anyways, so they're both inside, and Kayla sees that they're both inside, and tries to get Jerry to leave, and fails to do so, even trying to ask politely. So Kayla preps on and hires Tom to do the job. But meanwhile, the co-manager guy, Terrence, threatens Kayla by saying that if she doesn't get rid of this problem, there will be big issues afoot. So we got a chase going on. Tom proceeds to follow this little... Tom. I almost got confused there by my notes, but yes, Tom sees this string that is left to his devices, and it was prepped up by Jerry, of course, in which opening the door leads to the dog. And thus the dog proceeds to chase the cat, and the cat proceeds to chase the mouse. The nature of things, am I right? So they both chase around, and they chase around Kayla, and again they do this little whirlwind, this mini whirlwind that comes into effect later on in the movie as well. And thus, we have them sort of run off. So Kayla gets called off by the co-manager uh, to go back to the other thing that is happening in the movie, the wedding. So she is now tasked with the new task to find this wedding ring. It has been lost by uh, the bride, and the groom notices, and she is distraught. But Caleb finds an excuse to buy them some time to look for the ring. And it also turns out that Jerry ends up having the ring, so now he has leverage later on in the movie. So Tom makes this big elaborate plan while Jerry has the ring, and this big elaborate trap thing goes off, and it's this various amounts of things that all lead up to this one thing where the little mouse trap above goes from the roof down to Jerry. He probably could have ran out of the way, but he doesn't. But that, it wouldn't matter anyway. And Tom proceeds to get rid of Jerry for the time being. So Kayla, thinking that she's won, celebrates with one of her other co-workers. This drink guy, I don't remember his name. I don't even know if it was implied that she had a crush on him or whether they're just co-workers or not, but whatever. Anyways, so Tom, while he's celebrating as well, plays the piano, and they're planning to fire him, because they don't want a cat in there, I guess, but they also don't want to create another scene. And while he's playing the piano, he falls in love with the female cat, because this is the first time he sees her. So he's playing his piano, and he sings a little song, and that's when his voice suddenly comes in. His singing black voice. So anyways, I'm assuming the actor who sings for him is black. I don't know. I'm assuming. Is that bad? Did I do a racism by assuming that? I don't know. I could have probably looked that up. Not that that's any relevance, but whatever. So, again, he's in love, playing the piano, but Jerry is back because of course he is. Of course he found a way out. And he even shows off that he has the ring. So he, again, has that leverage. And Kayla sees this, and she's like, uh-oh. So the chase goes down. And when it does, the area in which they are proceeding to chase each other is torn asunder. And so, in the process of all this madness, the mid-manager Terrence gets fired. Not Kayla, but him. And he's even trying to argue that it was her fault for bringing all this, or at least bringing Tom in to do the job and failing to do so. So he's trying to argue for that. But the manager's like, no, you are the one who's crazy. No one else saw Jerry, apparently. So you're fired. So there's that. And then one of the other reasons that Kayla wasn't fired was her more impressive resume, which wasn't even hers to begin with. And he brings it up like, hey, you have a super impressive resume. And she's like, oops. Anyway, so Tom chases Jerry up into the roof, and Kayla sees this, and she's so done with it that she yells at both of them. And they're like sorry and trying to apologize in the way that they can. And she sees this, and she suggests that if they can somehow, the two of them, get along, that she will allow them to stay in this hotel, and that she will plan a day, which happens to be the wedding day, for Tom and Jerry to just hang out with each other, and if they do so for the next, I guess, 24 hours, I'm trying to think that she implied that she would allow them to stay in the hotel. So the deal is on. But the wedding has its own hijinks that are prepping up. You see, the husband had brought elephants, or hired elephants to be brought in. This is all in prep for this half-hybrid Indian wedding, you see. Or, I think that's what they're going for. So yes, Tom and Jerry proceed to hang out, and Tom gets a little whacked about here and there, which is typical, but things seem to be going fine and dandy for the two of them, who are just hanging out, for the most part. And the wedding plans are simultaneously going off. But, more things are kind of building up. There are these birds that are flirtatious with each other, is the best way I'll put it, that are also being brought in. And thus, as Tom and Jerry get into some more shenanigans and eventually get caught and arrested, or I should say placed into animal, control, the ex-co-manager sees this on the news. He went home, he sees this conveniently on the news, and he thinks of this brilliant plan, because now he wants his little bit of revenge on Kayla for getting fired and whatnot. So he talks to Tom and Jerry separately in this prison cell, one by one, getting them more angered at each other by saying the things that would put them off on each other even more, just after they were just starting to get along, at least in this movie. So he says that he'll only bring one of them back. And thus, as the wedding is starting, Jerry is the one who is not brought back by him, but it is Tom, but Jerry just happens to also be there. What a coincidence that the ex-manager put all of that together in his evil little plan. So Tom, being even more peeved, proceeds to chase Jerry, as he would have done anyway eventually. But in the process, they chase into the elephants, which, with Jerry being a mouse, they freak out the elephants. So now the elephants are freaking out, and the birds are freaking out. And oh, by the way, there's also a tiger there as well. And the tiger's going wild too. So everything's going crazy. All the animals are going nuts. There's a major whirlwind that consumes all the animated animals and compiles them into a huge mess, which tours the rest of the hotel down even more damage. So after all of that's done, and the animals sort of proceed to run off and do their own things, the manager is quite peeved that the wedding did not go off, and the co-managers there decided to suggest that, she didn't do her job, she failed. So Kayla proceeds to tell them that that this wasn't even her resume, that she lied, but she just wanted a chance to prove her worth in this work and earn work that way, which again, I like the way that they proceed to tell this little theme that they going on in the background here. But, so while Kayla is proceeding to just chill with with her coworker drink guy, he proceeds to bring Kayla to Tom and Jerry, who have made amends to a degree, because they see that they messed up to a degree in which they don't they don't like it. They were sad. It was the sad third act of the movie. Everything was bad. The wedding got cut off. The bride said no, or she brought off the ring. Kayla lost her job. Or at least Tom got kicked out. Everything was bad. So Tom and Jerry, seeing how bad they messed up in the proceeding of chasing each other, they decided to try to help out and work together once more. So, they do so, and they proceed to chase down the bride, trying to get her back into this pre-secondary wedding that is going to fix everything. So they manage to bring her back by pulling in the little female cat and, doing all that in the chase, as you can see with them on the skateboard working together there on the poster. So they manage to bring her back. And thus, after Kayla manages to get everyone else back, at least the people who worked at the hotel, they bring them back to this little outside area where the husband apologizes for trying to go too big, because he was just trying to, prove the worth of the love and all that, and they proceed to officially get married. Kayla, I don't know how this happened, but she managed to find the other woman who she lied to earlier to get this job in the first place, and brings her in, and Terrence is obviously crushing on her, this new female that they got to bring in. And they even suggest that Kayla could continue to work there as well, as she managed to unfumble her fumble. And again, saying and doubling down on resumes are shit. I agree. Resumes are shit. Let people prove their worth by the quality of which they can actually do work. I agree. Tom and Jerry, nice message. Speaking of Tom and Jerry, while Tom's trying to impress the female cat once more, Jerry interrupts his little piano playing session, which causes Tom to once more chase Jerry as he does. And everybody starts looking at him like, come on. And thus, Tom slides down the ending screen to hide off the fact that he's gonna continue to chase Jerry to the ends of the earth, and thus the cycle continues, and thus the dog also chases Tom as well, and they go off in the distance, and we roll into the credits. And that was Tom and Jerry. And for the most part, this movie, as I mentioned earlier, is fine. It's, the antics that Tom and Jerry go through. I think there's enough of that, as I mentioned. We have our main story, which is, it's fine. Sure, you can argue the whole you've seen it before. I don't really care about how many times a cliche happens these days, because at this point everything is a cliche. I'd be surprised if you can find a subject that wouldn't be considered a cliche, but at some point that thing is going to become a cliche in film. That's just how it works. So I don't think that argument's good anymore. You have to say why it doesn't or does work, and I think it works fine in this movie. The whole liar revealed plot I'm referring to, by the way. Um, Kayla comes to those terms on her own. She didn't even have to admit that, by the way, and she just does at that point in the movie. So, again, I thought that that part was fine. Uh, and again, the hijinks that Tom and Jerry get into are fine. Everything in this movie is fine. The only thing that made me tilt my head and get a bit peeved was, again, the implication that Jerry could possibly be female and or male, or trying this whole woke thing again. That's the only part of the movie that I was like, come on. We really didn't need that in this movie, but it's there. It's annoying. It's pretty quick, but it's so fucking annoying. Um, Again, if you're going to do a whole equality thing, again, you had Grace Mortez in the movie. You had Hit Girl in your fucking movie. You didn't need that. Um, so again, that aside, I think this movie again is fine. Solid 6 or 7 out of 10, somewhere around there. It's fine. There's no issues among the one that I could clearly point to, and among the other minor things, like again, as I mentioned earlier in the review, the little bits where they're interacting with the humans and it's a little bit off, like, again, not by much, but it's fine. And that's what I gotta say about the movie. It's fine. Again, they could have cut out that little bit, but it's fine. So there you go. That's my review of Tom and Jerry. And if you enjoyed this review, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And my links will be in the description if you want to support me. The first will head you over to my Discord server. It's pretty low and empty. And you can also join my Patreon page to help me finally get a job without meeting the requirements of YouTube, which is a numbers game instead of a quality game. So please, if you enjoyed this review, consider joining my Patreon. And I will continue to review movies when they come out and I can see them, and review them when it's a proper amount of time later. Anyways, if you enjoyed all that, I did all the stuff. So until next time, everyone, bye-bye.